Hey, welcome to BreitWerks. Guess what? Not another Porsche. So, you've seen this car before. 2013 VW Passat 2.5 liter 5 cylinders. It has a leak coming from the oil filter housing to the engine. So, we need to get the oil filter housing out. Apparently, in order to do that, you gotta take the intake manifold off. So, while we're in there, and we have access to everything. Also up in that dark hole is a thermostat. So we've got a new one of those. We've had that for a while. We're going to change that. But yeah, this was supposed to be a quick oil change. And when I got under here, you can see oil had migrated all the way back here. Now this has only been 3 months since I was under here. So this guy is got problems. So we're gonna figure out how to get some access to that and keep on trucking. All right, we're in pretty far. We got the offending oil filter canister housing out, and you can see those seals just were no longer working. And this is weird. I actually found a piece of this in the oil filter, but whatever this plastic thing is in there had broken out. So, yep, this guy is getting fully replaced. I don't think this falls under DIY, although Volkswagen guys are very, very resourceful. But I had the thermostat out. Probably if you're watching this video and looking for any tips or tricks, take the dipstick out. It's one bolt on the bottom. That made life a lot easier because there's a lot of bolts you can't get to. All right, well, we're gonna put thermostat housing back in, and then we'll wait on some parts. And we're probably gonna replace this valve cover gasket too, because it had a little weep in the back, and I thought that was the oil leak. Turned out, no, that was not it. So getting deep inside here. So I figured while we're waiting on parts for the oil filter, adapter, cooler, lots of parts in that little plastic piece of shit. But there was a leak, a tiny little leak in the back of the valve cover gasket. So figured I'd pull that off since we got everything else out of the way. And turns out that the valve cover, which is down there, is actually a big integrated assembly that has your PCV valve in it, all kinds of stuff. So we're just going to change the whole valve cover because it comes with a gasket, and the screws are encapsulated in it too. So that's going to be get rid of that leak also. It was just a tiny little leak. You can kind of see some of the staining on the cover for the exhaust manifold. But yeah, we'll get that surface cleaned up, get a new one installed, and hopefully that will solve a lot of our leaks. Alrighty, it took 2 tries, but we have finally got the correct oil filter housing assembly. This is the E version, and what was sent to us was the D version. And the D version actually has a bung fitting right here. And I don't know if that's for an additional transmission cooler or what, but this is the one we need. So you can see it's got all new seals on it. And one of the cool things, I told you guys earlier in the video that Volkswagen folks are pretty industrious. Somebody in one of the forums, B6 forums, they found out that the entire assembly, or at least the specifications for this motor, were out on the National Highway Transportation and Safety Administration website. So all the bolts, there's 5 bolts that hold it to the engine block, and then 4 bolts that hold the engine oil cooler on. They're all 25 Newton meters. So we've put a little bit of blue Loctite on there, and we're gonna get this guy reinstalled right now. All right, we got everything under the bottom all fitted. So that's the new oil filter housing assembly. That's the little silver thing right there, this aluminum deal. That's your oil cooler. So this assembly comes with all new gaskets. So gets torqued down 25 Newton meters. 5 bolts hold the assembly to the block, and then 4 bolts hold the oil cooler to the assembly. And then the other thing, I think I said this earlier in the video, life gets a lot easier if you take out the dipstick tube, and there's a little bolt right there. It's a triple square, and all it does is basically hold the bracket. The thing pulls right up. But we cleaned up the underside here, so we'll be able to keep an eye on any leaks. Now we got to go topside and get everything else put back together. So let's get up there. All right, so what have we done so far? We changed out the valve cover, right? The gasket's integrated with the valve cover, plus your PCV valve is integrated. So after 200,000 miles, probably not a bad idea to change that guy. That was relatively straightforward. We also changed the thermostat assembly. Did the whole assembly need to be changed? I don't know. We did it anyway, but it comes with a new thermostat, so that's a bonus. And then this is the top of the oil filter assembly housing. You can see the oil cooler right there. So 1, 2, this is a clip, this is a squeezy clamp, and then the oil cooler has another hose that comes to the bottom of this with a squeezy clamp. And then this guy, if you're trying to figure out how to get him out, you have to loosen this bolt, and then you have to turn him 90 degrees counterclockwise, because this metal bracket fits under this plastic tab. So you will break this for sure if you try to force this out, but all you have to do is turn it 90 degrees and it unclips itself and comes out. But getting this guy to slide into the back of the water pump, because there's a pretty healthy O-ring on there, that takes a little bit of energy and effort. But what we're going to do now, we're going to clean up those gasket surfaces, and we're going to stuff this intake manifold back on here. I did have to make a tool for the intake manifold just because of how it all goes together. This bolt, see this one bolt down here at the bottom? You need about an 8-inch extension, and it's an M6 head. Here, I'll show you what one looks like. This is it. Now this bolt head is actually too big to come out of the intake, so you have to feed it through the bottom of the intake, get it lined up, and then get your tool in there. And basically what I did was I took a 1/4 inch 6mm hex, and I ground down the OD of it. So if I ever have to torque something to 100 foot-pounds, that socket will blow up. But these go to, I want to say 10 Newton meters. So very, very light torque. But we also got 5, because it's a 5-cylinder, we got 5 new intake gaskets. So we're gonna go put those 5 new intake gaskets on and see if we can figure out how to get this guy all torqued down. All right, we got our intake manifold back on. Now, here's what I was talking about. This hole right here, all right, you can see down there, there's a bolt. And you can get to that bolt just like this, no problem. Now, the bolt that's in this hole is actually captured within a square piece of plastic, so you really can't get to it. But when I say I turned it down, you can see this used to be a black, what do you call it, socket. And all I did was just turn down the OD, the outside edge of it, so that it now fits in this hole. All right, let me lock it in. And so it now fits in this hole, and just barely, by the way. And then you kind of have to fish for it. See, now I can feel them on it. So that's, oops, don't want to lose it. And we got it back out. So don't jam anything down that hole, because if you do, you're not getting it back out. I mean, I guess you could Sawzall right across the intake here, but hey, who knows? And then the other thing we did, we changed the gaskets. Do you need to? I am sure that there are shops every day that put all this shit back together and don't change the gaskets, and it works just fine. But I've always kind of, you know, these are not cheap. I think they're $5-6 each, and you need 5 of them. But I also got a new throttle body gasket too. So between throttle body and the intake, you just don't want any intake leaks. These kind of cars are very susceptible to intake leaks. They get very angry over that. So let's see, now we're going to put the fuel rail back on and make sure that little things like these PCV and vacuum connectors, right, are all hooked up to where they're supposed to be. So that's our next objective. All right, filled her up with 6 liters of France's finest. And you know, the scary thing about this, the car didn't exhibit any issues. It wasn't until going under the car that I found that the pan was covered in oil. But car ran fine. So yeah, we did a lot of work for a car that was running perfectly well. But I mean, just sounds better. I don't know if the fresh intake gaskets, but no signs of a leak back here. So that's good news. And we'll retorque all that stuff after we run it through a heat cycle. Right now I'm just trying to make sure we got all the coolant back in it that we took out of it. But yeah, lots of little dinky stuff. So we'll see how well it holds up. But hey, for 200,000 miles, 193,000 miles, things running like a top. Thanks for watching. Check us out at BreitWerks.com. Have a fantastic day. And good luck. Good luck if you're out there in the DIY world.